All right, discussing the P-UDI and P-DHY irons from Taylormade. Now joining us, all things irons, Mr. Matt Bovee, good friend of the show. Matt, welcome back to GTC.
Thank you, Scully. Always good to see you, man.
Always good to see you too, my friend. Okay, what is your excitement level for these new utility irons?
Other guys, very high. It's hard for me to actually express my excitement level with these for a handful of reasons. One, I've for the majority of my golfing career been a long iron utility iron player. Came from Arizona where it's windy, it's firm, so like a one iron was a staple in my bag as I kind of like learned to play and at the peak of my golf career. But also like the design language on these is incredible. We locked in on that early. I think it's beautiful, and I'm really, really excited that they're in the P series now, and what that means for what we did for the performance intentions with each of the products, and also what it means from a custom fitting perspective, so people can actually go find out how they should set up the top end of their bag. There's a lot of reasons to be excited about this new setup.
And now, how long have these new utility irons been in the works?
These have been going for about 24 months. So a lot of development time. And then of course, like just the refinements and shaping and making sure we got all of that right. Now that's in the P series, it's got to look more traditional from an iron perspective. We worked a lot with our tour team as well, specifically on the UDI, but a little bit on both to make sure we actually have a more compact blade length this time. We've cleaned things up from the playing position. Again, looks more traditional than where we've been in the past, and it feels phenomenal. So we made sure we went through all the little details to get it to where better players are going to appreciate this in a way they just haven't from us before.
Now, before we get into all the tech, let's get real simple. P-UDI, P-DHY. What do these stand for?
So P stands for players in the P series family. UDI stands for ultimate driving iron, and DHY stands for driving hybrid. The DHY kind of lives in this middle ground between an iron and a hybrid or a rescue, as we would call it. So it's got a little bit wider sole, lower face profile, allows you some different versatility. It's a little easier to get up in the air, different types of shots between the two, but they're both utility irons from us, and they have a lot of specific benefits. It just depends how you want to work your way around the course.
And now we'll get to the main technology points here momentarily, but let's say someone watching this interview is using the P790 irons per se. Do you think these new products have a very similar feel to that of the P790?
Yes, definitely. So similar construction. Again, we'll get to the tech, but the forged hollow body with speed foam air inside. It feels like a 790, maybe even arguably a little bit better as we've continued to learn and refine. But it's a good option for 790 players. The P-UDI is actually going to be more forgiving than a P790, even though the blade length is a little bit shorter. Now you're going to see more from address. It's got a little bit more. You can see a little bit of the back bar. So the idea there is you're not looking down at something so intimidating, but it's got that penetrating flight and it's forgiving. On the DHY side, it's actually the most forgiving iron we make. It's more forgiving than a QI iron. So even if you're on the game improvement side of the spectrum, if you have a hard time hitting long irons and you're not necessarily someone who wants to play a rescue type of product, the DHY is a fantastic option. That's like the secret weapon in the iron portfolio. It gets overlooked, but those who like go down that path, I find end up loving it, and they just become staunch DHY players.
Wow, a lot of information there. And give us some more in terms of technology points that are with both of these products, both P-UDI and P-DHY.
Happily. So both the P-UDI and P-DHY have, like I mentioned, forged hollow body construction. They got that high speed 4140 face. That's similar to a 790 or a 770 in terms of face materials. They have the speed foam air inside. Again, that allows us to really damp out those vibrations while making that face as fast as possible. They also have internal tungsten weighting, which allows us to drive up that stability, make them very, very forgiving. Again, that's a really key aspect to designing utility irons or long irons. You want them to be stable so they're easier to hit than your set of irons. And they have the speed pocket as well, which gives that face more flexibility for those low impact positions. And that's so important, in my opinion, specifically for irons like this and your long irons, because your angle of attack, it's a bit more shallow, and you find yourself hitting lower on the face more often. So you really need to protect that ball speed to give yourself the ability to have that consistency and that forgiveness.
And you mentioned something a little earlier about the P-DHY, the most forgiving iron in the set. Now, we were together in Greenville back in December. You told us all about the QI iron, so those were very forgiving. But how did you make the P-DHY even more forgiving?
So the PDH, like the QI iron, is extremely forgiving for sure. The PDHY is just it's a different embodiment. Being that forged hollow body construction, it has a similar blade length to a QI iron, but it's got a lower face profile, which allows us to, again, we have more mass to play with. And we can just put stuff kind of in a different place inside a hollow body iron, which allows us to drive up that forgiveness. So it's really a combination of face shape plus the tungsten weighting that's in the PDHY because it's forged hollow body compared to the QI iron. Now, getting into like these versus are the other irons in the lineup, what I love about these is they give players a different option for the flight window that they want to hit. Now, like a P790 or a QI, those are both going to have a lower center of gravity than these irons. And they're going to be actually loft for loft easier to launch in the air than the UDI and the DHY. These are going to give you a little bit more penetrating flight with more spin. So it's going to reach a similar peak height, but you're going to get that penetrating flight if you want it. For anytime you're looking for a fairway finder or you're playing in the wind, again, like the DHY has a lower center of gravity than the UDI, so it's easier to launch in the air than the UDI, but they are going to give you different flight characteristics compared to the set iron and a QI or 790 or 770.
So there's so much technology jam-packed into these two products, but when you look down at a dress or just look at these products in general, they're beautiful to look at. How important is the look of both of these irons and the importance of that to any player?
Yeah, extremely important. Like the look in how that inspires confidence in a player. And we all know that the more confident you feel over the ball, the more likely you are to hit a successful shot. It's that simple. If you believe you can do it, you're much more likely to execute, right? So the balance in terms of how much back bar do you see, what's the top line thickness, how's the offset look compared to the rest of the product, you got to have it all in balance and really just dialed in. And again, something we go through a lot of effort to get right. And with the UDI specifically, working with our tour team to get some, again, their feedback and giving them a different option for the long irons. Because a lot of tour players, they also want a long iron that's easy to launch in the air and is going to hit the number that they're looking for. And again, like you compare this to like an MB or an MC3 iron, like those are very, very challenging. 770 even, like that gets to be difficult and it's a different spin profile. So we wanted to give them another option that looks great and performs great.
You mentioned tour feedback there. Do you think we're going to see both of these models out on tour?
I think there's a good chance eventually. I don't want to, jinx myself, but we are working very hard with a certain world number one who likes to see more back bar at address. He's more of a DHY type of player than he is a UDI. And again, this comes down to like, it's just what you like to look at, what gives you confidence. Neither of these should be pigeonholed like, oh, that's for better players and this is for game improvement. Doesn't work that way. It's just what works for you. And I think that there's a chance that you'll see some PDHYs on tour, but you will definitely see more of the PUDI on tour than the DHY.
So I guess in summary, it's safe to say that the P-UDI and P-DHY, the perfect addition to the P series of irons. What do you think?
Oh, I see what you did there. Yeah. I think it rounds out the P series portfolio very well. They just make sense inside the P series. We know that if you're playing a UDI or a DHY type product, you're likely in a 790, 770, or maybe even something more towards the better player side of the spectrum. Really rounds it out. Again, you got to think about how you want to play golf, how you get around your course, the type of shots you're going to hit, whether it's your normal course or maybe you got a golf trip coming up and you're like, you know what, I'm going to be in a link style and I got some wind. I need something that's more penetrating. These are perfect tools to add to your arsenal, even if they're not in your weekly bag.
So much versatility with these two new products. Can't wait to give them a try. Matt, thanks for your time today.
Yeah, pleasure, Scully.